The Kralaxian flotilla orbited the mining colony of Proxima Centauri b, their bioship forms pulsing with anticipation. For decades, they had expanded unchallenged through this sector of the galaxy, consuming resources and eradicating resistance. Admiral Zarks, supreme commander of the invasion force, observed the small human settlement below with what passed for satisfaction in his species. Such primitive defenses, Zarks communicated to his sub-commanders. This will be another simple harvest. The mining colony housed only 5,000 humans, with minimal orbital defenses and a small security force. Like all other species the Kralaxians had encountered, humans would learn their place in the galactic hierarchy as resources to be consumed. Zarks' command center pulsed with new information as a junior sensor officer reported. Unknown vessels detected, Admiral. They appear to be approaching from the Sol system. Show me, Zarks ordered, his interest barely raised. The tactical display revealed a small formation of ships moving at surprising speed toward Proxima Centauri. Zark studied their approach vector with mild curiosity. Intelligence had indicated humans possessed only rudimentary interplanetary travel capabilities. These ships moved with purpose, suggesting more advanced propulsion than expected. How many vessels? Zarks asked. Initial count shows 34 ships of various sizes, Admiral. Configuration unknown. Zarks dismissed the concern. Even if humans had developed better ships than anticipated, they remained technological infants compared to the Kralaxian biofleet. Whatever defensive force they mustered would be obliterated like all others. Maintain orbital positions. Let them come to us. Aboard the UEF Intrepid, Captain John Miller stood on the bridge as Earth's newly commissioned Deep Space Fleet dropped out of FTL. The Intrepid led the formation, followed by 33 other vessels representing humanity's first true interstellar armada. All ships report successful transit, Captain, said Susan Wright, his tactical officer. Formation is holding. Miller nodded, studying the main display where the Kralaxian bioships hung in orbit around the mining colony. Intelligence had provided accurate numbers. 57 bioships of varying sizes, arranged in their standard harvest formation. They're not moving to intercept, noted Pete Daniels, the navigation officer. They're just waiting. They don't see us as a threat, Miller replied. That's their first mistake. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Unlike the chittering excitement of the Kralaxian command centers, human military discipline created an atmosphere of focused calm. Every person on the bridge knew what was at stake, not just the mining colony, but humanity's first true interstellar confrontation. Tactical analysis of enemy position, Miller requested. Wright studied her displays. Enemy bioships are maintaining standard harvest formation. No weapons charging detected yet. They don't appear concerned by our arrival. They think we're lambs to the slaughter, Miller said. Lieutenant Garcia, open a channel to the fleet. Kevin Garcia, communications officer, nodded. Channel open, sir. All ships, this is Captain Miller. Maintain formation and prepare for Operation Checkmate. Phase 1 begins on my mark. The human fleet arranged itself in a defensive screen between the Kralaxians and their escape route. To the aliens, it appeared to be a standard, if primitive, defensive posture. What they couldn't detect was the quantum-encrypted network linking every human vessel, or the specialized cargo they carried. Deploy reconnaissance drones, Miller ordered. Let's get a closer look at their neural patterns. Small, stealthy drones detached from the outer ships, their propulsion systems barely registering on sensors as they moved toward the Kralaxian fleet. In his command ship, Admiral Zarks watched the humans with growing amusement. They positioned themselves between us and open space, as if they could prevent our departure. His sub-commander signaled agreement. Their tactical positioning reveals their technological limitations. They believe this is a conventional battle. Zarks' bioship pulsed with anticipation. Begin absorption protocols. Their ships will make a fine addition to our collective. Neither Zarks nor any Kralaxian could have guessed that this battle had begun long before the human fleet arrived, and that their defeat was already written. The Kralaxian fleet remained in position, their bioships shifting slightly as they prepared for what they considered an easy victory. Admiral Zarks watched the human vessels with a sense of superiority that bordered on boredom. His species had conquered 12 star systems using the same tactics: overwhelm, absorb, and expand. Begin standard attack pattern, Zarks ordered. Target their lead vessels first. 5 Kralaxian attack ships broke formation, their organic hulls pulsing with stored energy as they moved toward the human fleet. The bioships resembled massive jellyfish, their translucent bodies housing complex neural networks that acted as both brain and weapon. Aboard the UEF Intrepid, Captain Miller tracked the approaching enemy ships with calm focus. "They're sending a small attack group," reported Susan Wright from Tactical. "Standard pattern, just as intelligence predicted." Miller nodded. "They're testing our defenses. Let's show them something unexpected." Begin Phase 2. What the Kralaxians couldn't detect was the quantum-encrypted network linking every human vessel. For 15 years, humanity had secretly studied the remains of a crashed Kralaxian scout ship found buried in the Martian desert. The biotech reverse engineering program, codenamed Firewall, had yielded extraordinary results, not in copying the aliens' biological technology, but in developing countermeasures. "Deploy first wave of microdrones," Miller ordered. From 6 ships positioned on the fleet's perimeter, tiny clouds of what appeared to be metallic dust dispersed into space. Each particle, no larger than a blood cell, contained a specialized nanite program to seek out and attach to Kralaxian bioship tissue. The approaching Kralaxian ships didn't alter course. Their sensors registered the particle cloud, but classified it as harmless debris, a common mistake for a species that rely primarily on biological sensing rather than technological detection. "Nanite deployment at 40%, reported Angela Ross, the fleet's biological warfare specialist. "First contact with enemy bioships in 30 seconds. Miller turned to his communications officer. "Send the prepared message to the colony. Tell them to stay in their shelters, but be ready for evacuation if needed." The mining colony below had been secretly prepared for this encounter. What appeared to the Kralaxians as primitive defenses were actually decoys, masking more sophisticated systems buried beneath the lunar surface. The first wave of Kralaxian ships entered the nanite cloud. To the aliens, it seemed like nothing happened. Their systems detected no weapons fire, no energy signatures of attack. They continued their approach, unaware that billions of microscopic machines were now attaching to their outer membranes. "Nanite attachment confirmed," Ross announced. Beginning Phase 1 infiltration. The specialized nanites began drilling through the outer layers of the bioships, moving toward the neural networks that controlled the living vessels. Unlike conventional weapons, these machines were designed to target specific biological systems rather than cause general destruction. In his command center, Admiral Zarks received the first confused reports. "Forward scout vessels report unusual sensations in their outer membranes," a subordinate communicated. "Minor irritation, nothing significant." Zarks dismissed the concern. "Continue approach. Prepare absorption tentacles." The Kralaxian attack strategy relied on extending massive tentacle-like structures to engulf enemy ships, breaking them down at the molecular level and absorbing their materials. They had never failed to capture prey using this method. "Nanites have reached neural pathways," Ross reported on the Intrepid. "Beginning delivery of engineered phage." The second stage of humanity's defense activated as the nanites released their payload, specially designed viruses that targeted the unique quantum biological communication system of the Kralaxian fleet. The first sign that something was wrong came when the lead Kralaxian ship suddenly stopped, its tentacles retracting involuntarily. "What is happening?" Zarks demanded, feeling the first tremor of concern. 2 more attack ships began moving erratically, their coordinated approach breaking down as their neural systems malfunctioned. Miller watched the display with grim satisfaction. "All ships hold position. Let the nanites do their work. The human fleet hadn't fired a single conventional weapon, yet the first wave of Kralaxian attackers drifted helplessly in space, their biological systems in chaos. The battle had only just begun, but humanity's years of preparation were already proving their worth. Confusion spread through the Kralaxian fleet as the first wave of attack ships drifted helplessly. Their movements became erratic, organic control systems failing as the engineered phage spread through their neural networks. What had begun as minor irritation quickly escalated to systemic failure. Status report, Admiral Zarks demanded, his bioship pulsing with irritation. Forward vessels have lost neural cohesion, reported his second-in-command. They no longer respond to the collective. 3 ships have completely severed from the hive mind. Zark studied the human fleet with new concern. No weapons had been fired, no energy signatures detected, yet his ships were failing in ways he had never witnessed before. Launch the second attack wave, he ordered. Full absorption protocol. 20 more Kralaxian vessels surged forward, their massive forms glowing with stored energy. Unlike the first attack group, these ships activated their defensive membranes, creating a thick biological shield around their hulls. Aboard the UEF Intrepid, Captain Miller watched the approaching enemy with steady eyes. They've adapted quickly, noted Susan Wright. Second wave has deployed membrane shields. Miller nodded. As expected. They think they're dealing with some form of radiation or energy weapon. He turned to Angela Ross at the biological warfare station. How are our nanites performing against the first wave? Ross studied her displays, which showed microscopic views of the phage activity inside the disabled Kralaxian ships. Complete neural disruption in 5 ships, sir. The others are at various stages of infection. The phage is replicating exactly as designed. Good. Deploy second-generation nanites, Miller ordered. Let's show them shields won't help. From the human fleet, a new cloud of particles dispersed, this time carrying nanites specifically designed to penetrate the Kralaxians' defensive membranes. These second-generation machines were equipped with specialized enzymes that could break down the biological shields. Pete Daniels at navigation tracked the enemy's approach. Second wave will reach nanite cloud in 45 seconds, Captain. Miller opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships prepare for potential direct engagement. If they realize what we're doing, they may change tactics. The human vessels maintain their defensive formation, conventional weapons powered, but not yet active. The battle strategy relied on the invisible assault of the nanite swarms, but every ship was ready for traditional combat if needed. In his command center, Admiral Zarks watched with growing alarm as the second attack wave entered the same region of space where the first had begun malfunctioning. He had ordered them to avoid whatever invisible weapon the humans were using, but there seemed to be no clear attack vector to evade. Intensify membrane shields, he commanded. Reroute neural pathways through secondary systems. The leading ships of the second wave slowed their approach, their biological shields thickening visibly. For a moment, it seemed the adaptation was working, until the first ship suddenly expelled a cloud of luminescent fluid, its membrane rupturing in multiple locations. Impossible. Zarks' command center pulsed with alarm signals. They've penetrated our evolved defenses. On the Intrepid, Ross reported, second-generation nanites successfully breaching membrane shields, Captain. Enzyme delivery at optimal levels. The Kralaxian attack formation dissolved into chaos as ship after ship lost control. Some drifted randomly, neural systems scrambled by the human phage. Others began pulsing rapidly, their biological systems attempting to purge the infection by expelling internal fluids, a desperate measure that only weakened them further. Miller watched with grim satisfaction. The strategy was working even better than projected. 15 years of studying the crashed Kralaxian scout ship had given humanity profound insights into the aliens' biological weaknesses. They're pulling back the remaining ships, Wright reported. Looks like they're trying to create a quarantine zone around the infected vessels. Too late, Miller said quietly. The nanites have already transmitted the infection signature to the main fleet. Through his view screen, Miller could see the larger Kralaxian vessels, including Zarx's command ship, beginning to show signs of the infection: sporadic pulses of light, uncoordinated movements, expulsion of biological matter. "Should we hail them, sir?" asked Kevin Garcia at Communications. Miller shook his head. "Not yet. Let them realize what's happening first. Sometimes understanding comes before conversation." In his increasingly unstable command ship, Admiral Zarx was reaching that very understanding, and the realization filled him with something his species rarely experienced: fear. Admiral Zarx's command ship trembled as waves of disruption cascaded through its neural pathways. Around him, the proud Kralaxian fleet drifted in disarray, bioships firing randomly into empty space or shutting down entirely. More than half his forces now floated helplessly, their biological systems corrupted by the invisible human weapon. "Sever connections with all infected vessels," Zarx ordered, his voice equivalent vibrating with strain. "Isolate command neural networks." His remaining officers complied, cutting the biological connections that normally linked the entire fleet into one vast organism. It was a desperate measure. Kralaxians functioned best as a collective, but it temporarily protected the command ship from complete neural collapse. "What is this attack?" Zarx demanded of his science officer. "How do primitive humans possess such capability?" The science officer's form pulsed weakly. "Analysis suggests a biological agent targeting our neural transmission pathways. It appears engineered specifically for our physiology." This revelation stunned Zarx. The humans shouldn't have knowledge of Kralaxian biology. His species had been careful to destroy all evidence of their presence when scouting human territories. Aboard the Intrepid, Captain Miller watched the Kralaxian fleet's deterioration with clinical detachment. Phase 3 of Operation Checkmate was proceeding exactly as planned. "The command ship has severed connections with infected vessels," reported Susan Wright. "They're attempting to quarantine the infection." "As expected," Miller replied. "They still don't understand what they're facing." He turned to Communications. "Lieutenant Garcia, open a channel to the Kralaxian command ship." Garcia worked his console. "Channel open, sir." Miller straightened his uniform and faced the view screen. "This is Captain John Miller of the United Earth Fleet vessel Intrepid. Do you receive?" "Admiral Zarx." The screen flickered, then filled with the image of the Kralaxian commander, a swirling mass of translucent tissues surrounding a central neural cluster that pulsed with bioluminescent light. "How do you know my designation?" Zarx demanded, the universal translator converting his neural patterns to human speech. "We know a great deal about you and your species, Admiral," Miller replied calmly, "including the precise structure of your neural pathways and how to disrupt them." Zarx's form rippled with agitation. "Impossible. Your species lacks the technological development for such biological warfare." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "This isn't simply about technology, Admiral. It's about understanding your weakness." He nodded to Angela Ross, who transmitted a data package to the Kralaxian command ship. On Zarx's displays appeared images that shocked him to his core: detailed scans of a Kralaxian scout ship, dissection records of Kralaxian biological systems, and complex models of their neural networks. 15 years ago," Miller continued, "one of your scout ships crashed on Mars. Your cleanup crews missed it because it was buried under a rockslide during entry. We recovered it, studied it, and learned everything about how your bioships function." Zarx's command center pulsed erratically as the full implications became clear. The humans hadn't just developed countermeasures, they had engineered a precise attack leveraging everything they had learned about Kralaxian biology. "Your defeat was inevitable from the moment you entered our system," Miller stated flatly. "Your bioships may be advanced, but they share a fundamental vulnerability. They evolve as a collective. We exploited that evolutionary adaptation." Around Zarx, even his protected command ship began showing signs of infection. Secondary neural systems flickered as the engineered phage found pathways around the quarantine measures. "What do you want?" Zarks asked, his usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. "First, understand what's happening," Miller replied. "The nanite phage currently disabling your fleet is designed to maintain neural disruption without causing permanent damage. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we chose not to." Zarks absorbed this statement with growing comprehension. The humans hadn't just beaten the Kralaxians, they had chosen the manner of their victory. "We came prepared for you, Admiral," Miller continued. "We've been preparing since we found your scout ship. The question now is, are you prepared to listen?" For the first time in his long existence, Admiral Zarks, conqueror of 12 star systems, understood what it meant to be utterly outmaneuvered. The revelation was as clear as it was shocking. This battle had been lost long before it began. The bridge of the Intrepid fell silent as Captain Miller finished addressing the Kralaxian commander. Admiral Zarks's translucent form pulsed with erratic patterns that the human crew had learned to recognize as distress. "You claim you could destroy us, but choose not to," Zarks finally responded. "Why would you show restraint? We would not have done the same." Miller nodded. "That's precisely the point, Admiral. Our species differ in fundamental ways. Humans value life, even the lives of our enemies." Behind Miller, Angela Ross monitored the spread of the engineered phage through the Kralaxian fleet. Nearly 80% of the bioships now showed complete neural disruption. The remainder, including Zarks's command vessel, were fighting a losing battle against the infection. "Captain," Ross said quietly, "the phage has reached critical saturation in the command ship. Their primary neural cluster will begin failing within minutes." Miller acknowledged with a slight nod before turning back to the screen. "Admiral, I'm bringing in someone you should speak with." The captain stepped aside as Mary Baker, Earth's diplomatic envoy, moved into view. Unlike the military personnel in their dark uniforms, Baker wore the blue and white of the United Earth government. "Admiral Zarks," Baker began, her voice calm but firm, "I am authorized to offer terms for your fleet's withdrawal from human territory." Zarks's form contracted slightly. A gesture the humans had learned indicated skepticism. "You speak of terms while your weapon destroys us from within. The nanite phage currently disabling your fleet is designed to maintain neural disruption without causing permanent damage," Baker explained. "We can deactivate it at any time, or we can modify it to completely dismantle your neural networks. The choice is yours." The human fleet maintained position, a wall of steel and carbon composite between the Kralaxians and the mining colony they had intended to consume. Behind them, small evacuation ships were already departing from the colony, carrying civilians toward the safety of the fleet's protective barrier. On the view screen, Zarks conferred with his remaining functional officers, their biological forms merging temporarily in what humans had learned was their method of private communication. "What are your terms?" Zarks finally asked, his translated voice noticeably weaker than before. Baker didn't hesitate. "First, immediate withdrawal of all Kralaxian forces from human-claimed systems. Second, formal recognition of human territory, including our colonies and mining operations. Third, biological samples of your phage antidotes, so we can verify your ships won't pose future threats." Zarks's form pulsed rapidly. "And in exchange, we provide the counter-agent to neutralize the phage in your ships," Baker replied. "And we open diplomatic channels between our species. No further hostile action will be taken against your fleet as it withdraws." From her station, Ross reported, "Command ship neural function down to 30%, Captain. They don't have much time to decide." Baker continued, her voice taking on a harder edge. "Your remaining options are simple, Admiral. Withdraw from all human territories immediately, or face complete neural collapse of your entire fleet. We've prepared a data package with the boundaries of human space. Those boundaries are non-negotiable." Lieutenant Garcia transmitted the information to the Kralaxian command ship. The map showed human territorial claims extending well beyond what the Kralaxians had assumed, encompassing several star systems the aliens had marked for future conquest. Zark studied the data, his biological form contracting further. These claims exceed your current settlements. They represent our planned expansion, Baker explained. Areas we have already surveyed and designated for colonization. We will not negotiate on this point. For the first time in recorded history, a Kralaxian armada faced certain defeat without even engaging in direct combat. The psychological impact rippled through their collective consciousness, even through the disrupted neural pathways. We require time to consider, Zark said, his translated voice breaking up as his ship's systems continued degrading. Baker shook her head. You have 10 Earth minutes, Admiral. After that, we cannot guarantee the phage will remain non-lethal. The progression is accelerating. As the communication temporarily ended, Miller turned to his crew. Maintain battle stations. They're not beaten until they leave. Susan Wright checked her tactical displays. Sir, they couldn't launch an effective attack now if they wanted to. Their fleet is functionally disabled. Never underestimate a cornered enemy, Miller replied quietly, especially one who's never known defeat. Admiral Zarks floated in his command center, his biological form now visibly deteriorating as the human phage attacked the neural pathways of his ship. Around him, the few remaining functional officers struggled to maintain basic systems. The once mighty Kralaxian fleet drifted helplessly, most vessels completely dark or pulsing weakly with failing energy. Analysis complete, reported his science officer, voice translated through increasingly unreliable systems. The humans speak truth. The phage is precision engineered to target our neural pathways without destroying core biological functions. How? Zarks demanded, his own thought processes becoming sluggish as the infection spread. How could they know us so completely? The science officer projected images from their own records. The scout ship that went missing near their Mars planet 15 years ago. We assumed it was destroyed in the planet's atmosphere. Zarks absorbed this information slowly. An entire Kralaxian scout ship in human hands for 15 years. More than enough time for a determined species to learn everything about Kralaxian biology. They did not just study our technology, he realized aloud. They studied our very essence. On the view screen, the human fleet remained in perfect formation, weapons still powered down. They didn't need to fire a single shot to achieve complete victory. Admiral, his second-in-command urged, we must decide. Our neural functions cannot resist much longer. Zarks reviewed the human terms again. Withdrawal from their claimed territories would mean abandoning plans for expansion in this sector. The Kralaxian Dominion would consider it a failure. Yet the alternative was the complete loss of a fleet that represented nearly 1/5 of their total military strength. Open channel to the human vessel, Zarks ordered. Captain Miller appeared on the view screen, his expression calm and patient. Behind him, Zarks could see the organized efficiency of the human bridge, so different from the organic flow of Kralaxian command centers. We accept your terms, Zarks stated simply. Miller nodded. A wise decision, Admiral. We'll transmit the counter-agent immediately. Our scientists estimate your ships will regain basic neural function within 1 hour. You could have destroyed us, Zarks observed, genuine curiosity in his translated voice. We could have, Miller confirmed. But unlike you, we don't seek to eradicate other species. We want coexistence, but we will protect what's ours. As the transmission ended, Zarks sank into deep contemplation, a biological state similar to meditation for his species. 15 years ago, humans had been considered primitive by Kralaxian standards. Now they had defeated an elite fleet without firing a single conventional weapon. Begin distributing the human counter-agent, he ordered weakly. As the antidote spread through the command ship systems, Zarks felt neural function slowly returning. Reports began coming in from other vessels as they too regained basic capabilities. The humans knew our weakness before we arrived, Zarks communicated to his subordinates. This battle was decided years ago. His tactical officer, neural function partially restored, displayed analysis of the human fleet. Their ships are technologically inferior to ours in propulsion and weapons capacity. Yet they defeated us completely. Not through technology, Zarks responded. Through understanding. They studied us while we ignored them. For a species that had evolved through biological absorption of other life forms, this realization brought profound discomfort. The Kralaxians had always evaluated potential rivals based on their technological advancement. They had dismissed humans as barely worth notice, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Signal the fleet, Zarks ordered. As soon as neural function permits, we withdraw from human space as agreed. The remaining Kralaxian ships began powering up their organic propulsion systems, the bioluminescent glow returning gradually as the counter-agent neutralized the human phage. "Should we report this defeat to the Dominion?" asked his second-in-command. Zarks's form pulsed slowly as he considered. "We will report that we have encountered a species requiring special consideration. A species that defeats enemies not through superior strength, but through superior knowledge." As the Kralaxian fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Zarks continued watching the human vessels. For the first time in his long existence, he felt something new: respect for an adversary, and perhaps, though he would not admit it to his subordinates, a touch of fear. Captain Miller stood on the observation deck of the Intrepid, watching as the last Kralaxian bioship disappeared into FTL jump. The viewport showed only stars now, peaceful and unchanged, as if the confrontation had never happened. Behind him, the door slid open as Mary Baker entered. "Quite a view," she said, joining him at the window. "Hard to believe we were facing extinction just hours ago." Miller nodded. "They'll be back, won't they?" "Not to fight," Baker replied with quiet confidence. "They'll be back to negotiate." Below them, the mining colony of Proxima Centauri B continued its operations. Evacuation ships had returned, bringing back the civilians who had been temporarily moved to safety. From orbit, the colony looked small and vulnerable, exactly the kind of target the Kralaxians had consumed dozens of times before. "I filed my report to Earth Command," Miller said. "Operation Checkmate exceeded all expectations. The nanite phage performed better than our simulations predicted." Baker smiled. 15 years of preparation. Some called it paranoia when we started the firewall program. Now those same critics will call it foresight. On the command deck, Susan Wright coordinated with the other ships as the UEF fleet established defensive positions around the colony. The immediate danger had passed, but standard protocol demanded they remain vigilant. "All ships report optimal status, Captain," she informed Miller through his comlink. "No damage sustained during the encounter." "History's first bloodless space battle," Baker mused. "At least from our side." Miller's expression remained serious. "We were lucky. If that scout ship hadn't crashed on Mars, if our scientists hadn't figured out their biology in time." "But they did," Baker interrupted gently. "That's humanity's greatest strength, John. Not our weapons or ships, but our ability to observe, learn, and adapt." Within hours, messages were being broadcast throughout known space. The seemingly unstoppable Kralaxian expansion had been halted by humans, a species most galactic civilizations had dismissed as primitive newcomers. In the communications center, Lieutenant Garcia monitored the growing response from Earth's other colonies. "News is spreading fast, sir. The settlements on Europa and Ganymede are celebrating. Mars colony has declared a public holiday." Miller allowed himself a small smile. They should celebrate. This victory belongs to everyone, especially the science teams who spent years understanding Kralaxian biology. On Earth, the Defense Council received Miller's detailed report. General Alan Davis, who had championed the firewall program against budget cuts and skepticism, addressed the assembled leaders. "The nanite strategy worked better than we had dared hope," he announced. Humanity has announced its presence to the galaxy not through conquest or destruction, but through innovation and restraint. The council chamber erupted in applause, a rare show of emotion from the usually stoic military and political leaders. Back on the Intrepid, Miller joined his senior officers for a quiet meal in the officers' mess. The conversation flowed easily, relief evident in their relaxed postures and occasional laughter. To the firewall team, Angela Ross proposed, raising her glass. 15 years of research that saved us all. They drank the toast, the gravity of what they had accomplished settling around them. "What happens now?" asked Pete Daniels. "We've made quite an impression on the neighborhood." Miller considered the question carefully. "Now we prepare. The Kralaxians aren't the only advanced species out there. We've revealed our capabilities to the galaxy, for better or worse." "I'd say for better," Susan Wright offered. "We didn't just win a battle today. We changed the rules of engagement." Baker nodded in agreement. "This is how we'll define ourselves in the cosmic community, not by how many enemies we destroy, but by how we choose to win." As the Intrepid continued its orbit around Proxima Centauri b, the human fleet remained a symbol of both protection and warning. For the first time, the galaxy began to understand. Humanity was not just another spacefaring species. They were a force that would change the balance of power forever. On the bridge, Miller reviewed the patrol schedules before turning command over to the night shift. As he did, a message arrived from Earth Command. "Operation Checkmate successful. Begin diplomatic preparations. The future starts now." Miller closed the message and looked out at the stars. The Kralaxians had learned a crucial lesson today, one the captain hoped would spread throughout the galaxy. Underestimate humans at your peril.